And away we go. It is the Nightcap brought to you by Hail Mary Sports Bar right here on BearcatJournal.com. Hail Marys wants you to know after a 10-year break, Westfest is back, kicking off Friday, June 20th, and rocking all weekend long. And guess what? Hail Mary Sports Bar is right in the heart of the action. The main outdoor Westfest stage, it's right in front of our place. They've teamed up with Triple J's Barbecue to bring you mouth-watering restaurant experience all weekend. Get ready for some amazing barbecue. Remember, it's 21 plus to enter the bar, and you'll need a physical, valid ID to get into Westfest. Cool off with our $5 domestic 22-ounce drafts. Ice cold beer and ice cold air conditioning are waiting for you at Hail Mary. Should be a great event. 20th, 21st, and 22nd Westfest in Cheviot, right on Harrison Avenue. Be there. All right, Aaron. I know the people were clamoring for shows earlier this weekend. I had plans. You had plans. Couldn't get around to it. But in some ways, I did kind of want to wait a day or two for this to digest. Everybody had very reactionary thoughts on the House settlement being approved. It is now in place, and players will be getting paid by the universities starting July 1st. So we are less than a month from revenue sharing and players getting a piece of the pie. There's a lot that goes into this. It's very complicated. There's still a lot that is unknown. We'll try to get into that as much as possible tonight. But just broad overview, Aaron, what is your general first reaction to the House settlement being approved?
It's not perfect. It's not.
No,
I don't.
There's no collective bargaining, so it's not going to be
correct.
Even close to perfect.
Correct. I think that the players probably got screwed. I think that there's going to still be plenty of lawsuits coming from this. I think that we're still I don't know, still at the tip of the iceberg. We've not gone underwater yet. It's just one step closer, I guess, as it is. But it's still just very messy, and
yeah,
I don't know.
I think somebody, I can't remember who it was. I've read a bunch. Obviously, there's a million articles out there about what this means. And our guy Justin Williams had a few things up on reactions from people in and around college sports that, the typical, it's going to be a mess. Fuck Deloitte. There's going to be a clearinghouse now for NIL. What is true NIL, what's going to be approved, what's not going to be approved. I think what we read a couple weeks ago, 70% of the deals made with actual companies for name, image, and likeness would have been approved. 80% of the deals made with collectives, essentially, or, someone that's not an actual business, 80% of those deals would not have been approved. There's a whole lot of legality that's coming in that, because what gives you the right to say what is a fair market value if somebody is
for
willing
my
to pay
name
it.
is for my name,
Right.
image, and likeness. How do you get to make that decision? Yeah.
Well, this is what the market says. Well, this is what we believe this person is worth to our company for their advertising. Like, there's still a lot that's gonna be decided. But the point I'm making, I'm sorry, I can't remember who it is. I read so many of them, but it was that this is the beginning. A lot of people are looking at this as the end. This is the beginning of this process. And here's a piece that stood out to me that I don't see talked about enough, Aaron. This is a 10-year deal. This settlement is a 10-year agreement. So we basically have from now until 10 years from now to get this all figured out. before it all devolves back into chaos. And I don't know that I think we can get closer to that. I'm very interested. I guess for me now, the next step becomes, does Congress do what the NCAA wants them to do, which is step in with a bill that would prevent the players from becoming employees? Because that's the next frontier on this, is employment. They're being paid by the universities now. When they become employees, if they become employees, then you can have collective bargaining, and this thing can continue to move forward. But the last thing on earth the colleges want are the students to be employees, because that opens up an entire different set of problems for them. Not for the athletes, not for the people that are going out and performing for the university and doing things like driving up admissions and driving up applications and making these schools a bunch of money outside of the money that they're making in athletics. I think that's really the next frontier that we have to watch, is where does this go in terms of the athletes being able to unionize, being able to have a say in how this all goes? Because right now they're getting 22.5% or whatever it is of the revenue, an average of the revenue from the P4 schools, which is $20.5 million over the 10 years. That's expected to grow up into the $30 million range. But there's a lot still to come.
I thought that these were all universities, which means they're schools, which maybe they're working under a completely different definition than I've been taught my entire life of the word employee. Because I thought an employee was somebody who went and worked for you, and in return for that work, you gave them money.
Which is what's happening now.
And yes. I thought that, are the players getting taxed on this money? Because if they're getting taxed for the revenue,
oh yeah,
that's earnings, which you get for being an employee. So again, maybe I'm just very confused. Is there like a new standard for employees that we're working
under?
I
guess they'd have to file them as independent contractors via 1099, right? I don't know that for sure, but that would be how you would, not be subject to benefits and workers' comp and all the other things that comes with being an employee. They would be independent contractors of the university. I mean, we'd need to.
At that point, though, most independent contractors, I don't know, a lot of them get into unions, and I'm very curious as to how you can prevent these players from becoming employees or even from unionizing if you put a bill in place. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, again, they are, and I don't really understand it, because it would make, in my opinion, it would make the NCAA's life easier, the school's life easier, to just go ahead and make them employees. Well,
the problem the schools are running into, though, is the fact that it makes you a for-profit organization as opposed to a nonprofit organization.
Correct.
And then that's a whole different ball of wax.
Yes. That's ultimately where it.
But let's not kid ourselves. They're definitely in it for the profit. Look at the revenue that we're talking about here.
Right. Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Revenue share. Again, maybe we're working under different definitions of words, but I thought revenue was, I don't know, from profit. And if you're working for profits to get revenue that you have to now distribute to your not employees, because God forbid we use that term. What are we doing? What are we doing?
To me, though, it feels like we're at the starting point, and once again, the NCAA is going to choose the path of most resistance because judges have already determined that you cannot restrict their opportunity to make money, especially off of their name, image, and likeness. Are these schools really going to sign this contract? I know everybody, Gary Parrish, and there's, a lot of people out there are screaming at the top of their lungs that this is going to go back to the old pay players under the table system. There's going to be, people that are not reporting their NIL money, because that's the thing. If you make over $600, you're supposed to report it to NIL Go, which is the clearinghouse, and then they determine whether it's thumbs up or thumbs down. I mean, how many people are just going to not report that they're getting NIL money, or that so and so is paying them under the table, or but here's the thing that people aren't thinking about on this. That used to be a pretty small amount of money, Aaron, when kids were getting paid under the table.
By comparison to Cooper Flagg making $28 million this year, reportedly. Yeah.
In comparison to the average P5 starter in basketball making about $1 million on the open market this year. If you were a Power 5 starter and you changed schools, you got $700,000 to $1.2 million for a replacement level starter at the Power 5 level. That is not the equivalent of I know.
Can you imagine trying to fit $1 million into a McDonald's bag?
I know of a school that UC used to be in a conference with. Their big donor might have something to do in the water industry, the enhanced water industry that's out there now. That the way it's like $50,000, and what they would do is they would give the kid a $5,000 unmarked visa or whatever every month for 10 months. That's how they got to their $50,000. That's pretty. You can get away with that and not be setting off red flags across multiple levels of where is the money going? You start $500,000 starts changing hands, people are going to start raising eyebrows about that. That's not chump change. That's not $10,000 in a McDonald's bag. So that part of it, sure, they might think we're just going to start cheating, but the athletes ain't looking for $10,000 anymore. That ain't moving the needle. So now you're going to have to you're literally be embezzling money. I know boosters love their program, but are they going to go to jail for embezzling money outside of the system? Hundreds of thousands of dollars so their team is better?
Easy way to fix it is just to start offering death sentences to the schools. You kill a program.
Yeah.
Done.
You're out for a year.
You're done.
You don't have to do it long. All it takes is 1 year.
Yep.
You're done for this year.
Yep.
And then, you see where it goes from there. You see if that slap on the wrist, now they'll be able to go out and buy a team for next year. But, that would get the point across, I think. The punishment will be interesting once we get somebody that goes into this infraction system, breaks the rules. Does it look like what it has looked like in the past, where it's slow as hell and there's no transparency, and by the time they issue a ruling, everybody's forgotten about it, and the ruling tends to be, depending on what level you are, the higher the level, the lesser the punishment. But
unless you self-sanction, and then it's all okay.
Yeah. Which is an admittance of guilt, self-sanctioning, by the way. We did it. Just don't be as mean to us as you can be And a lot of times it's funny because we weren't going to be we weren't going to make a bowl game, or we weren't going to make an NCAA tournament. So we'll just self-sanction and we'll sit this one out and be ready next year. And there's a lot to it. There's
I just don't want it pinned on just the head coach at that time. Like, it needs to be an entire program.
Yeah, but then it gets into you're punishing kids that didn't have anything to do with it.
Not anymore, because you can transfer out and go to
transfer.
You don't have to sit out a year anymore. It's very different than what it was once upon a time. Because at that point, then the coaches all suffer. Fine, you were part of the staff. The program suffers. Most of the time, these coaches know what's going on anyway. Like, let's not kid ourselves. If you're turning a blind eye to it, that's also on you, coach. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that there's ways to just, it doesn't need to fall solely on the coach. It needs to fall on the entirety of the program, especially the AD who hired the coach to be in charge of all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll get into it a lot more tomorrow night. I'm sure, Brent and hearing from Ryan is definitely going to be interesting. Just to kind of get a sense for things. But that's the first fleshing out of what all this means. It's fascinating. College sports is changed forever. Friday night at 9:30 or whatever it was that I told you Fridays, they tend to do that stuff on Fridays and late. And sure enough, 9:30 on Friday, I was already a couple Cincy lights in. I was like, no, we're not going to do one tonight. We will we'll continue the conversation tomorrow. That is the Nightcap, brought to you by Hail Mary Sports Bar, right here on BearcatJournal.com.